Welcome to the Upshot, Multi-World Disc Golf's podcast about the latest in the disc golf world. I am the publisher, Charlie Eisenhood. Joining me is Josh Mansfield. $250,000 awarded as the season comes to a close at the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championships this past weekend in Charlotte. What a tremendous event. Great to watch, packed with spectators, incredible, exciting disc golf from names known and not so known. And a big congratulations, first of all, $30,000 paychecks, obviously the biggest of their career. It would be for anybody in disc golf, the biggest payout of their career, going to Nathan Queen, who played all the way from the first round to win the final, and to Missy Gannon, who has just been red hot late this season. And they both take home a very large $30,000 check. There's so much to talk about today. We're going to get to as much as we can. More to come, of course, on Thursday. Josh, first and foremost, just before we dive into everything, what did you think of the tournament overall? As the 2021 season is now officially over.
This year, more than other years, it felt like a fitting conclusion to the tour. I think there was a lot of excitement. The coverage was fantastic. The payout created drama, as we're going to talk about, that I don't think would have been there otherwise. And I remained locked even on day 1 and 2 when I wasn't watching the entirety of the rounds just due to work. I was able to keep an eye on. I was watching UDisc like a hawk. I mean, I had that up on my phone at all times. So I think it had some excitement that is befitting of a tour championship.
So let's talk a little bit about money. Obviously, huge payouts for both Queen and Gannon. Big payouts for everybody that made the finals. $15,000 for second place, $10,000 for third, $8,000 for fourth. Those are going to be the biggest payouts of players' careers in many cases, and certainly some of the biggest of the season, even for the big names like Paul McBeth. So let's talk about this. Nathan Queen, prior to this tournament, had earned $18,000, almost $18,739 this year in earnings, and a total in his career of $72,383. Tack on $30,000, and that adds 41% to his career earnings. His career earnings, and nearly doubles what he was earning, well, more than doubles, nearly triples what he earned this year so far. Similar story for Missy Gannon, who has already had a tremendous year. Let me just give you the last 5 years of her earnings, okay? She was an amateur player 6 years ago, okay? She was playing in advanced. And since then, the last 5 years, so 2016... No, let me get this right. 2017, she earned $530 in earnings. 2018, $2,309. 2019, $7,883. 2020, $11,340. And this year, prior to this tournament, $37,029, make it $67,029, a single season FPO record, beating out Paige Pierce by getting the win. Otherwise, it probably would have been Paige. And adds 51% to her career earnings with that $30,000 paycheck alone. We're talking about actual, career-shifting amounts of money. And, it's fitting that it's all happening in 2021 with everything that's going on, the growth of the sport, we've got tour merger, happening next year. What an amazing statistic. And we could go through every player, and this is going to be one of the most significant, cash payouts that they've ever had.
It's the kind of earnings that, like you said, it's career defining in a way that I think can change trajectories of careers moving forward. If you look back at Chris Dickerson, when he won his first Pro Tour championship in 2018, he played 5-6 Pro Tour events that season before and then really starts to kind of commit. And then you start seeing the Dickerson that we now know beginning in 2019 and really in 2020, right? So it's those Pro Tour championships that I think really do bring momentum, because that kind of cash flow builds careers. It allows for people like Nathan Queen and Missy Gannon now to have a sense of financial security in the off season. And also moving forward, that kind of single cash payout makes a difference in the ability moving forward, I think, of players, and will have tangible effects on their careers, at least for next season, if not for the rest of their careers.
Well, Josh, you said something earlier that the money kept you interested. Tell us about that. Why did the payouts keep you more locked into what was happening in the rounds as compared to a normal tournament?
Sure. So a lot of the times there's been a little bit of debate about whether or not money can make a championship, right? Not a major per se, but a championship. If you just keep adding cash, does the wonky format and the weird timing mean that you eventually are going to just not care about those things enough because there's so much money on the line that it's exciting? I was a skeptic of that argument. I thought that, you had to have good golf, you had to have the right format, you had to have the right course, you had to have all those things. And don't get me wrong, I think the Pro Tour Championship did excellent this year with a lot of those things. And so maybe I still should be a little bit skeptical, but I was very skeptical of the argument that money can make a difference in terms of the excitement and watchability of a tournament. I was wrong. And this weekend proved it, because hole 18, Missy is 3 strokes ahead of Heather Young. It's pretty much locked in. There's very, very little chance after she's clean through the gap, especially, like, it was over. We all knew it was over. And I was still riveted to the action because Heather Young had a 1-stroke lead on Sarah Hokum, and the winner of that hole was a $5,000 difference, which is more than most first place FPO payouts in the regular season, right? So it had to be enough cash that it was significant, and not just like, oh wow, like $5,000's a lot of money, but like for FPO payouts, $5,000 is a ton of money. And so I'm watching as Heather Young is just playing army golf from left to right in the trees and could not get clean to the basket. And then at the end, Sarah Hokum has a chance to putt in order to secure the tie guaranteed and ensure that she gets at least $2,500 in the split. She misses. Heather Young then has a putt where she could close it out and then take the $5,000 extra from 15 to 10 difference. She misses the putt, and so it ends up being a tie anyway. It's like, it was very dramatic, and I think the only reason I cared was because of the money. And I think it's the only reason that even the commentators cared. Otherwise, we start talking about Missy Gannon, the kind of round that she had.
Right, you're just like
her dominance,
just walking it in. Yeah, totally.
Right, exactly. I mean, it's just semantics at this point, and I mean, I'm sure it's significant to them, even if it was $1,000 difference. But when Terry Miller says this putt is worth $5,000, it's like,
that doesn't happen very often.
No, it doesn't. And it was exciting. So I stand corrected. I think money and this kind of cash does add drama and excitement to disc golf.
All right. Let's put it in the books right now. Next year's Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship payout, over under. It basically doubled from 2020 to 2021. I'm going to put the number
50%, right?
Was it? I thought it was 125 last year. Maybe I misremember.
Oh, sorry. You're thinking total purse. I was thinking purse. Just winner payout.
20 to 30. Okay. Right. I'm talking total purse. This
total
year was
purse.
250.
Okay. Yep.
Last year it was like 125-ish area. I'm going to put the number at over under 349,999.
I think that sponsorships are like a snowball. I think that when you get big names, they continue to come and you continue to attract attention and money. Because not only do you, I think, have a better chance of retaining those sponsors. I mean, we talked to Sean Jack about this. I'm going to take the over.
All right.
Sean, if you're listening, I'm counting on you, man.
349,999. Josh is taking the over. I will take the under. This is just, there's so many remarkable stories to talk about here. Nathan Queen. Okay, obviously this is his biggest win of his career. This is the biggest payout of his career. to do it at home in Charlotte, when he's talked a lot about that. By the way, if you're watching on YouTube, I got my hand shirt. So Nathan Queen throwing it up. Shout out to him. Just such a likable guy coming from the 28th seed, where you're basically at an incredible disadvantage, because if you tie with a player seated higher than you, of which most of the players were seated higher than him, then you get knocked out, right? So he had to not only have one of the 4 best scores, but surpass other people, because ties were probably going to knock him out. And he goes all the way from round 1 to the finals. They could not stop talking about this on the broadcast. Nobody picked him to win in the bracket. Literally 0 people. Okay, think about how crazy that is, because we go back to the last bracket we had at the Match Play Championships, and it was like, who picked? I don't remember even who we were talking about. Right? It was like
when Emerson Keith beat Ricky.
Emerson Keith beat Ricky, and it's like, who would pick like that? But
38 people did. Yeah,
nobody picks Nathan Queen, and you can understand it. If you look at what he did this year on the Disc Golf Pro Tour, he only had 1 top 10 finish. He finished 8th at Des Moines, which was like almost Silver Series in MPO, right? Like, otherwise, he was in, he had some top 15s. He was 12th at MVP. But, I mean, the guy just came off of USDGC where he did not cash. He did not cash at USDGC, turns around, and then just navigates the gauntlet that is the Pro Tour Championship, having to put together amazing round in order to win the 30K. And I'll tell you what, Chris Dickerson twice has done it, where he went from round 1 to win the tournament, right? He did that back-to-back in 18 and 19. This is so different. This is not 2018 and 2019 Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. It's just not. This was like, he was an incredible underdog, regardless of the fact of whether people picked him or not. The fact that he was able to pull it off, it's remarkable. It's remarkable. And, we've seen glimpses from Nathan Queen, but I don't know if it's home field advantage. He thrives on the crowd. I mean, what do you feel like you saw from Queen this weekend that was enable him to do this?
One more thing I want to say real quick, actually. I want to take a small divergence about what you were talking in terms of the bye to semis round 1, right? So, Chris, if you look at from 2021 to 2017, over the past 5 years, except for Chris Dickerson's 2 wins and Nathan Queen's this year, every player who's won the Pro Tour Championship in both MPO and FPO had a bye to semifinals. And I would posit that Chris Dickerson is a semifinals player who always ends up in round 1 because he doesn't play enough on tour in those first early years, right? Chris Dickerson, and maybe not in 2018, but 2019 especially.
I mean, even then.
Right. I could have, if Chris Dickerson had played on tour all season, I think he would have been in semifinals.
One of the highest rated players in the world.
Right. So he is conceivably a bye to semifinals player.
Right.
That is not the case for Nathan Queen.
He had a big advantage in those early rounds.
Right.
Given his skills.
Yeah. It's like you rate like, it's like you would put North Carolina at like the 8 seed or something. It's like, it's just like, it feels off a little bit. That is not the case for Nathan Queen. At all. Like, I think the 28th seed were like, yep, that sounds like that's right. 28th seed is correct. I think Nathan Queen had a stellar first round and then built on momentum. I think Nathan Queen has to be someone who relies on momentum. You see him when he plays, the kind of energy that he brings. And if you look at the way his scores developed, round 1, he goes 6 under. In the quarterfinals, he goes 7 under. In the semifinals, he goes 7 under. And then in the finals, he goes 8 under, right? He just kept getting better. That is the mark for, I think, the Pro Tour Championship of what you have to do. As the competition was elevated, so was he, and he was just rolling off of that momentum and energy that he had brought from previous rounds. I don't know, though, and I'll throw this back to you, Charlie. Is this something that you can read into for future Nathan Queen performances?
Well, I mean, Do I think that now all of a sudden he's going to start dominating the tour? No, I don't. You know, at the end of the day, we have a lot of evidence that he's a good player, but not an elite player. But I think that this is the kind of thing that can suddenly like spark a level of confidence in a player that can change the way that they feel about their own game, that the way that they attack courses. You know, he's not, this is a course that's set up well for him. Shot shaping, not necessarily tons of distance required, right? He is going to be at a significant disadvantage on a number of courses. Not that he's not a strong thrower. He is, but he's not at the top tier who's going to be winning a Las Vegas Challenge, right? But that said, I do think that, you know, the fact that he had some really strong finishes towards the end of this season, including, you know, the 8th at DMC, the 12th at MVP, like he started to find a little bit of a rhythm. And I don't think this suddenly changes anything. I just want to remind you that in the actual Pro Tour standings, he was 30th. Like he barely made the cut. But remember, there were 2 drops, both for injuries. And we'll talk about Eagle's injury that kept him out in a little bit. But he like needed those points that he got late in order to even get in, right? His 12th place finish at MVP got him 42 points. He also played the Stafford Silver Series probably because he wanted the points. He finished second there, picked up 21 points. And those 60 points were like what catapulted him past Barella, Gossage, who both ended up playing, Lizotte, Casey White, Kale LaVisca. Like, it was not a foregone conclusion that he was even going to be in this tournament. He almost missed it.
Yeah.
And then he wins it. It's insane. You got to love it, right? This is why this format is interesting. And if I can just take a little detour into the format for a second. You know, we've talked about, is it weird for this tournament not to be stroke play? You know, is there a better mechanic than the way that they set it up to, you know, reward season performance without making it feel like you have to reset the scores every round? I feel like this year really is a feather in the cap of this format because it is electrically exciting to have everybody starting at even every round. And like a early bogey or two, it's like super painful. And, you know, if you're a Ricky Wysocki and you take a quad bogey on hole 2, see ya. I mean, the guy amazingly almost fought back into it, but like you can be down and out immediately. And I have to say, it's pretty fun to have that like clean slate every round. I feel like this showed it to you because think about how exciting it was in the middle of those rounds to watch, you know, well, Hamas was out of it early in MPO, but Gibson, Macbeth, and Queen were all playing really, really good disc golf. And it was back and forth. I mean, Macbeth had the lead in the back 9. And Queen had to hit a bunch of huge birdies in a row to pull away. And even going into 17 and 18, it was still, the door felt a little open. Maybe not on 18, but in FPO the same. Like Missy was playing so amazing, but there was still pressure from Sarah Hokum and from Heather Young. And I think that if you do stroke play and it's 4 rounds, like you're going to just end up with less variance, more top names at the top. And you could say that that's the more true way to crown a champion. But theoretically, when, you know, 7 of 10 of the winners of this tournament over the past 5 years have come from the bye to semis, like you're already getting that advantage by being a great player, getting that bye 2 semis. You only have to put together 1 great round to make the final instead of 2, 3, or 4, like Queen, to win the thing. So I don't know. This was just incredibly entertaining disc golf.
And what more can you ask for? I mean, that's at the end of the day, At the end of the day, I am willing to sacrifice the fairness or the golden standard of what we need to reward players for their season performance in the name of good disc golf. Maybe that's bad of me. I bet there are some players who disagree, but I think you're right. The track record has proven in the past that it seems to be pretty consistent with our results of the tour. It was great. I loved it. And here's what I will say. We mentioned this real quick, Charlie, but how could you not watch live coverage for this event? Like, and I understand that there are some who have work. I personally had work on early days, so I was catching bits and pieces of it. But on Saturday and Sunday, how could you deliberately choose to wait for post-produced if you had the time and ability to watch live coverage? Because it is essential to follow more than one card at a time. It's critical. It is. You cannot even enjoy this format if you're not following other cards at the same time. Live coverage sets up so well for this style, and it was a treat to behold.
It really was. It really was. I mean, how about Missy Gannon? Okay, again, single season earnings record, $67,000. And she shoots 1,001 rated final rounds. This wasn't a cheapie. It's not like other people played bad and she got the dub because, and we kind of talked about that. Like at Throw Pink, it was like, Missy played well, but a lot of players were faltering in big spots, and Paige had the big lead and blew it, and it was like, well, but Missy stayed consistent, and there she was. But this time, right, she actually went out there and just shredded, and she has only thrown a couple of 1,000 rated rounds in her entire career. She shot a 1,004 rated round at the 2020 Dynamic Discs Open, and at a B tier a few years ago, she shot a 1019 rated round. Those are only 1,000 rated rounds on her ledger, besides this one. Talk about a time to show up and play your best disc golf. And I mean, it was just, she was so clean off the tee. Everything looked good about her game. The putter was just falling. I mean, she was just hitting huge putts. Like, even when she was out of position, she was hitting like circle 2 putts to, big putt people who are inside circle 1. Just an incredible all-around performance from Gannon. And, it's not like it was perfect. She had 2 bogeys, but just such a strong front 9. She'd already put herself in a position to win at that point, going 5 under through the front and hitting 3 circle 2 putts in that stretch. It was just awesome to watch. And this, I think, Josh, does speak to the future potential of Gannon and what we could see from her moving forward on the tour, the way that she closed out this season.
I agree without question. To take down those 2 tournaments is already an amazing feat in and of itself. To do them back to back is exceptional. It truly is. And what's crazy, her 5 under in finals could have been better. Like hole 18, for example, you could tell after her drive, very emotional, right? Very overwhelmed, you could tell. So she goes up to throw her second, and kind of shanks it through the trees, and it pops out kind of nice. And so it's a pretty easy layup. But like, she could have thrown that shot clean. She could have had another birdie. Not only is her scorecard amazing, but it doesn't even reflect that if she was in a close race, she had more room to keep pushing if she needed to. It was a wire-to-wire Missy Gannon performance. And I think that kind of dominance in a tournament is something that definitely speaks well to Missy Gannon's potential moving forward. And I think that she is one who, she's talked about her and her fiance working in the off season and how their schedule kind of revolves or has revolved around that in the past. I think this was probably a little while ago that I remember her on the Upshot talking about this. But this, for FPO players especially, this kind of money has to have a significant impact on the off season. And I cannot wait to see Missy Gannon come early season and see what she can do.
Tremendous stuff. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, more on the final round. We're going to talk about Drew Gibson, some of the crazy stuff that happened this weekend. There was a lot of wild moments. We're coming back with all of that. You're listening to The Upshot. The Upshot is presented by Pound Disc Golf, makers of the best bags in the sport. From 3D modeling to technical materials, Pound utilizes current technology to push product development beyond the current boundaries. But fancy software and high-tech materials mean nothing if you're not part of the actual building and testing of the bags. From the initial sketch to pattern sets, Pound cuts the materials and sews the prototypes together, ensuring that design and materials come together to achieve their ultimate goal, performing for players under all conditions. Check out the options at pounddiscgolf.com. Touring disc golf professionals understand the need to stay focused on their game plan during rounds. When they're focused, they're confident. And when they're confident, performance peaks. This is why so many touring pros wear Diameter apparel. Simply put, Diameter apparel is really, really comfortable, allowing players to stay focused on their game. Diameter apparel also happens to look amazing. Order online or find currently released designs at your local disc golf store. TDs and event coordinators are talking about how popular custom event and trophy jerseys are. Breathable, durable, beautiful, Diameter apparel. Welcome back to The Upshot. Going to just take a quick look at some of the other players that made the finals of the Disc Golf Pro Tour Championship. And Sarah Hokom and Heather Young tied in second place, 4 shots back of Gannon at 1 under. So they split the earnings there. And, to kind of a story of 2 very different players. Heather Young, super young, up and coming, and, incredible putter. I think it's amazing that she reached a final here, ceiling so high, coming in as the 9 seed, getting through that first round to get to semis, getting through the semis to get to finals. And then you got Sarah Hokom, the tour veteran who just continues to be insanely consistent and just never finishes outside the top 10 ever. And it's easy to forget because she doesn't win a ton of the time that she's still just always going to be in the mix and, had opportunities, just kind of went a little cold in the middle of her round to keep her from really being able to put the pressure on Missy Gannon late.
One thing I didn't realize about Sarah Hokom when we were talking about horses for courses, Sarah Hokom won her world championship on this property. So
that's right.
They mentioned that in the broadcast, and I was unaware of that. So, not shocking that Sarah Hokom played well here. I've got to be a lot of memories, and she's got to be pleased with her performance. I mean, she's still taking home a great paycheck. That missed putt on 18 could have ended up costing her, but overall, has to be very pleased. And very interesting when you compare the 2 rounds as well. Sarah Hokom does have an extra birdie, but has the extra bogey relative to Heather Young, who had a long stretch of just pars with from hole 10 to hole 17, had 2 birdies and a bunch of pars. So very clean through that stretch. Which is, I think, definitely the stretch that is both scoreable, but also could really put you into some problems. So it was great performance.
Her driving performance was really good. She just couldn't get the putter going. She went 0 for 6 from circle 2. Missy Gannon went 3 for 5, and that's kind of the difference in some ways. You think about how different it could have been if Hokom hits a couple of those early C2 looks to either save par or get a birdie, and it might be a different story down the stretch. And Heather Young, solid, but I also think she left some putts out there. We saw her make some uncharacteristic errors, I would say, on the putting green. She missed a couple circle 2 putts, including the one on 18, circle 1 putts, that is. And she went 0 for 4 from circle 2. So I think you can chalk some of that up to pressure. there's a lot more on the line, not just the one on 18, but just in general. When you've got all of this money and all of this attention and the enormous crowd and everything, it's a little harder to hit those ones from outside 33.
And I think that at the end of the day, she still played her game, though. If you look at her Circle 1 and Circle 2 in regulation, 28% and 39%, compared to Sarah Hokum, who was 33 and 56, it still was on the putting green that she made it up and made the difference. But she throws so clean. Like and she has a good forehand, good backhand. She is a young player with a bright future. And I think even though her distance isn't great right now, I think that that's something that is definitely going to come.
I mean, she doesn't even need to become a crusher. She probably won't, at this point. But if she can add 50 to 75 feet of distance, that's going to make a big difference. Haley King, on the other hand, struggled in this final round, really just got off to a poor start with a double bogey on 1 and never really was in it. Only got 1 birdie on the round and looked as though she had given up pretty early in the round because it's just very hard to make up a big deficit in this format, particularly, of course, with just the 1 round. Apparently, Haley dealing with an injury. Back injury. She was dealing with some numbness. Didn't really seem to have pain when she was throwing, but tough time to catch an injury. And I guess, I'm impressed that she gritted it out. Hopefully this is something that resolves in the off season. You never like to hear about, numbness. Could be nervous system issues that, hopefully are not an impingement or anything, but still a great season for Haley King. And she still takes home $8,000, which, when you shoot an 11 over in the final round, you don't usually expect to take home $8,000. So you'll take it.
It's funny. My wife and I were watching it. And my wife's like, how's she in 4th place with an 11 over? It's like, no. She can't fall below 4th. Her money is secured at this point. She's good to go. So, that's, definitely not great that she got injured, but glad that she's still able to take home a great paycheck and go into the offseason in good shape.
And then over in MPO, Drew Gibson finishes in 2nd place, 2 shots back of Queen. Kind of had to try to pull off James Conrad on the tee of 18 to have a chance to force a playoff, but it was not to be. And so he finishes in 2nd, and just a tremendous finish to his season as well. Josh, good call on picking Gibson to make the finals, and he's had a great season. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple. Like, he really, it's funny because the best buzz thrower on the planet is not sponsored by Discraft right now. That dude was just shredding out there, and I think it's just super fun to watch. His ability to disc down and still, out throw a lot of his opponents is it's a special skill.
Drew Gibson posted on his Twitter or Facebook, one of the social media sites, posted about how he was very pleased with his performance this weekend because he said there was a moment near the end of the round, assuming somewhere on hole 12 to 13, that he said, if I want to be in the mix at all, and at the very least take 2nd, I need to start scoring now. And he did. I mean, he went in the back 9, 4 under, include a hole 8, and he's 5 under with the 1 bogey on 15. Just a very, very aggressive. And this is kind of what we've seen from Drew Gibson, right? It's playing for birdie, taking some bogeys with it. And he played, I think, really well. The one thing that I know has been noticed and talked about in a lot of the coverage is that his putter has been incredible this season relative to the past. That was his big hang up. And it's interesting because, a lot of times we say any player could succeed with any bag, right? They might take some time to develop it and get used to it, but these are professionals. It's the archer, not the arrow. Drew Gibson has the unique situation of being sponsored by a putter-only company, the EV7s. I think that's the mold. I don't remember what the name of the company is. Penrose. Thank you. So the Penrose EV7s, it's a company that literally just makes a putter. He is sponsored and uses those, and he has said time and time again how much confidence this putter has given him. And, it's a unique situation for sponsorship. We've talked about it in the past, Charlie, you and Jamie, about is this the future of what sponsorships are going to look like? Are you going to have players who just get putter sponsorships? And I think Drew is showing that there is a unorthodox way that you can both play the game and have your sponsorships, and it seems to be working out great for him. So congratulations to Drew.
Just to be clear, the disc is called the Penrose EV7.
Is it really?
Yeah, I know.
That feels backwards.
I don't. Yeah, I mean, remember the guy that's starting EV7 is like a former founder of Prodigy, and they just love to have like a lot of weird letters and numbers just mashed together. So it's. I don't know that I personally think that's the best approach to the description of the discs, but yes, they are EV7. The Penrose is the disc.
Okay.
And I mean, the dude hit 370 footers to birdie 3 times down the stretch. I mean, it was crazy. It was crazy. And yeah, I mean, we're talking about somebody who used to be known as like a poor putter. Is it the putter? I'm not going to tell you it's the putter. I still think it's the player. He practiced. He found a putter that he liked. Good for him. But I think we're going to see them sell some discs. Yeah. Let me put it that way. I mean, it was just so awesome to watch this disc golf down the stretch of that term of the finals. It was just insane, right? Out of position, really outside of circle 2, and bangs 3 huge ones to really, I mean, keep himself in the tournament. Like, he needed to hit those, and he did.
If he doesn't get that bogey on hole 15, we have an exciting finish. But
yeah, 2-shot swing.
Yep.
Paul McBeth was in the lead of this tournament on going into hole 12, and took a bogey on 12. Everybody else parred. And then he didn't hit the birdies in that late stretch when everybody else started scoring. And so Queen and Gibson kind of pulled away. McBeth finishes in 3rd place, 4 shots back of Queen. And look, I think McBeth obviously had a tremendous end to his season. We're going to have to talk more about what does his finish here mean for the Player of the Year conversation. We're going to get to that on Thursday. Talk a little bit more about the now that we've got all of the results in the book, where do things stand? But when you see him up going into 12, it kind of feels like it's this inevitability, right? Like, it's going to be McBeth. Like, great job, Nathan Queen. You played great to get this far, but now it's time to acquiesce to the greatest player of all time. Nope, didn't come out that way, and that's what you got to love about this format and about disc golf.
It really did. I think that's the best way to put it. It felt like an inevitability at that point. By hole 12, it's like that McBeth is not going to relinquish his lead. There's just no chance that he does it. There it is. But I mean, McBeth still had an amazing season. Shout out, McBeth does have the single season highest MPO earnings record now at $88,903. Almost $89,000 that this guy made from playing disc golf in just tournament winnings. That's the amount of growth this season in payouts has been exceptional.
He's donating all of that money, as a reminder, to his foundation that puts disc golf courses in underserved areas. I mean, what more can you say? That's incredible, right? That's a lot of money, and you figure all the donated baskets and equipment that are coming in from various partners of the foundation, that money is going to go a long way towards helping grow the game of disc golf. So kudos to McBeth for doing that. And here's the big question I have for you now. Is somebody going to hit the 100K mark next year in MPO in earnings, single season earnings?
Did McBeth make 10,000 in this tournament?
In 3rd place, he took 10. That's right.
I gotta go with yes. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Because payouts are going to go up next year, without a doubt in my mind. And if Macbeth had won this tournament, it would have been 100,000 this year.
That's true.
He'd had 108,000. Like he was
right.
two finishing spots away from having $100,000.
He was 6 holes away.
Don't tell Macbeth that. Don't send that in his Instagram DMs. Could you imagine that as an interview question? Macbeth, you were 6 holes away from breaking the $100,000 mark in season winnings. How does that feel?
Why did you choke? No,
I think though next season it's got to happen. I mean, and the big thing about it, remember, is that Macbeth's average finish relative to Eagle and Ricky's wasn't even that good. It was several spots.
I will
back.
say Macbeth texted me and was like, "Hey, you have my average finish wrong," and there was a little back and forth. Well, because of course. He wanted all of the tournaments included, including the majors. But remember, we split those out.
We did cut those out.
I think when we get to the actual full-on, average finish on the season, they will get included in one calculation, and maybe you split it out in a separate conversation. But it was still a very good year for Macbeth, especially the way that he closed it out with lots of top fives and wins.
Yes, and it was. But my point that I was going to make is that Ricky, Eagle, and Macbeth have room to do a better season. Like they all had a great seasons. If Eagle plays a little bit better at the majors, if Ricky plays a little bit better at the majors, if Paul takes a couple more tournaments, gets a couple more wins instead of second places, any of those guys could get there. And I think it'll happen next year. So yes, well, I'll say yes.
Let's quickly talk about Eagle and Ricky. So Eagle had to drop out of this tournament before it started because he was doing a video shoot with Jomez, and while he was, doing the shoot, but in between key shots, he tried to do a reverse 360 throw, and he basically threw out his shoulder, doing a reverse 360. So rather than going in the sort of normal clockwise, where you then, rip a giant backhand, which, you see players do even on the tee sometimes in a tournament. He goes reverse 360 counterclockwise and sort of does this weird push, forehandish push throw and throws his shoulder out. Obviously just a fluke injury. What do you make of this? Is this just bad luck? Is this why are you doing that right before the tournament? How do you see this?
I've got a couple of thoughts on this because I've watched social media and I've been looking at a lot of the comments. And so first, I don't agree with people who are like, why would you do a Jomez video? Sponsors shouldn't let you do that. I bet Ricky and those guys make decent money from participating in those extra media appearances. Right.
Well, remember, Eagle skipped playing practice rounds to go and play the skins match.
Yes.
Right. So there's precedent for this kind of thing.
Right. Well, and because financially it builds his brand, right? So financially it makes sense to me. It builds his brand. It increases his publicity and his coverage in a way that I think is going to help him. Because look at the way that, especially, some of the Jomez practice round videos, I see people wearing merch from those things all the time on the course. Like the Fox, my brother-in-law's got one, the Fox Elixir, where the Nate Sexton disc got peed on by the Fox. Yeah. That builds brands and helps build those kind of sales in a way that I think advances players' careers in a sport where otherwise it might be a little bit harder to establish. It takes work to build a brand in disc golf. That's being the long and short of it. So I don't agree.
Popular is way more important than finishing one spot higher in a tournament.
Right. It is.
Simple as that.
If Eagle had won this tournament, then I would say, oh yeah, definitely take that over a Jomez video. But if he goes into semifinals and then gets beat, the Jomez video probably would have more of a financial impact on him than just playing in this tournament would. So, I don't agree that people saying that he shouldn't have been doing Jomez stuff. Mechanically speaking, though, what a dumb throw to try. And of all the players, like Eagle generates so much force in his backhand. I just am in shock that he, like, I think that was a dumb move to try. Like, I really, if you watch it, have you seen the video?
I've seen the video.
It looks so unnatural. It's like,
Yeah.
how did you not think you were going to hurt yourself doing that?
Well, when he's describing it, you're like, wait, what did you do? Yeah, I mean, it just wasn't smart.
No, it wasn't. It wasn't.
Sorry. I don't really know what else to say. Like, I hate to see his season end like that. Mm-hmm. Obviously, it would have been great to have him in the competition. This isn't really going to, I don't think this is like some big thing that needs to be some long-term discussion.
No.
But it's just like, why? Don't do that. Don't do that. Like, if you're going to be doing throwing stuff, like, keep it to stuff that you're going to be throwing on the course so that I don't know. It doesn't seem like the right time to try something like that. But on the other hand, it is really fluky.
It is, yes.
And it's just sometimes you get hurt, bad luck. But he has also had a penchant for injuries.
Mm-hmm.
I would like to see Eagle take on like a more serious strength training routine in the off season to try to like work on some of that upper girdle, because he's been getting upper back injury, shoulder injury. He puts so much force on his joints because of how much power he can create. Like, it's probably time to do more than, stretching and light stuff. Like, I think, staying healthy is critical for obvious reasons, right? The best ability is availability. And he's missed tournaments this year multiple times because of injuries. And so, I think it's something to address in the offseason for sure. Ricky played in the tournament, but blew up his round on hole 2 when he took a quadruple bogey in the semifinals after he made the land, but did not make the island. Mm-hmm. Then he threw from the drop zone and was like maybe circle's edge, airballs the putt, which goes OB, and then misses the comebacker and has to take the quad bogey. He took to social media and said that he's not a fan at all of hole 2 at Hornets Nest. And there was some agreement from some other pros. The OB lines were well back up off of the water. So just making it onto the land was not enough. And even the little, wall to stop the disc from rolling into the water, that was not the OB line. The OB line was 5-10 feet in from there. So there were a lot of people who were making land, but then not making it inbounds. And I think there was quite a bit of frustration about that. It was an interesting hole. I think it was giving up like 60% birdies, but then also like a large number of double and triple bogeys. So what did you think of hole 2? Do you think Ricky got screwed, or is it just like, hey man, don't airball your putt?
Definitely. The first, I think, don't airball your putt. Like, that's for sure. But I will say, I'm fine with artificial OB. If you don't want it on the water, that's fine. But don't have an OB line and then a wall and then water. Like, that's I don't like that. I loved hole 2. I loved the change, pulling it back like that and making him hit the tunnel shot. Excellent change, in my opinion. I think it went from a pretty gimme hole on a lot of them for a lot of people to a hole that I think created some real excitement, a real technical shot that I really enjoyed watching. If you want the OB line up off the water farther, slide the wall up there and then punish people who try and slide their disc up, right? If you want to just have water and have a true island, then just get rid of the wall and let people slide out of bounds into the water. If you want to just be as fair and generous as possible, put a wall up around the water to keep people's discs from going in, but then just play the water line. I don't love that aspect of it. It feels, because Ricky hit inbounds and then it just on those pine needles kind of like skipped up and over and into the OB. And so If that disc hits with a touch more hyzer, it probably stays in bounds. So it's,
yeah, I mean the margins between parked and out of bounds were not very wide. Like,
no.
it was easy to go from having a shot that looked great to ending up out of bounds. And I don't know. You don't really want your hole design to end up like that, right? Like if you're inside the circle on land and you're out of bounds, like that sucks. Like no one is happy about that.
Yeah.
But I mean, the hole is the same for everybody.
It is.
So to some extent, it's just like,
and
take your lumps, right? If you end up at the drop zone, you got to execute from there and take your bogey.
Yeah. And that's the big thing. It's like the hole did not ruin Ricky's tournament. Ricky's airball putt ruins Ricky's tournament.
Agreed. Because he then proceeded to hit 8 birdies on the next 9 holes.
Right.
He only ended up 2 strokes out of advancing. I mean, you think what could have been if he puts it a little closer and he makes the putt and he takes the 4, that would have him at 8. Mm-hmm. Assuming everything else stayed the same. I know we talk about this kind of silly to play this game, but all he needed to get to was 7 because he was the 1 seed.
Yeah.
He was the 1 seed. He would have knocked Nathan Queen out.
Mm-hmm. The what ifs.
Nathan Queen shoots a 7 and is therefore directly behind Macbeth and Gibson, who also shot 7, but it was still enough.
Yep.
Because Kyle Klein was at 6, Gannon Burr was at 6, Ricky at 5, Conrad at 5. Just did enough. Birdied 18. Huge.
Yeah. So speaking of some fluky things and Gannon Burr on that list, man, did that round have a little bit of drama. So I'm going to start by saying Gannon Burr plays slow. Plays very slow. And on hole, hold on, let me get the hole right real quick.
It's just as simple as this. While you figure that out.
Yeah.
Gannon Burr has to play faster. And
yes.
If he doesn't, he should be sanctioned by the Disc Golf Pro Tour. Like, there's just no excuse. There's no excuse to play that slow. There isn't. He plays slower than Nico.
Yes. Except it's not just on putts. It's like on every shot.
It's brutal.
So Gannon Burr on hole 15 goes into the woods, goes and grabs a disc, lines up, does some practice swings, decides to switch his disc, goes back, switch discs. Okay, that happens. He then proceeds to swing a practice swing like 20 times. I was sitting here. It's like, I could have gone and gotten popcorn before this guy threw. Like the number of times he did this little sidearm swing was countless. He finally throws it and then goes back into the woods and then proceeds to take a while again. So Drew Gibson's like, I'm sorry, man. I really am. I'm not trying to be a jerk about it. You've got to play faster. And the commentator's like, this is effectively a courtesy violation warning. If he doesn't play faster, he's going to get stroked. Burr then proceeds to finish that hole with the bogey and bogey 16, effectively taking him out of, he could have gotten a birdie on 18, but he was 1 stroke off and then took those bogeys. So you have to think the 16-year-old is rattled by this, at least a little bit. But I think it was I think it was the right call.
Look, I can't emphasize enough how much I think it's important that we get to the point where we have officials, marshals, something to make these kinds of calls or empower players to make these calls more effectively. Like, it's bad for everyone. It's bad for the players on the card. It's bad for fans. It's bad for the sport to have somebody sitting there and taking forever to throw their shot. And it's one thing if it happens once or twice around or whatever, but when it's happening every single time and you're causing backups on the course, which Gannon Burr causes backups because of how slow he plays, it has to get solved. Mm-hmm. It has to get solved. And it sucks that players like Drew have to be like, hey, listen, I'm really sorry. I'm not trying to be the bad guy, but dude, you're playing way too slow. It shouldn't get to that point. It should be addressed earlier. And I don't know what the solution is because players don't want to make enemies of each other. Right. And I understand that. But there should be a marshal there who says, hey, that's 3 times now that you've exceeded your limit. If it happens again, you're going to get stroked. And actually put a clock on and actually try to make changes happen. And, there's always going to be stuff with the rules. People foot fault. We'll talk about that. But, the players clearly have shown with their actions that they're not really going to police this stuff because they don't want to be the bad guy or gal. And so what is the plan? Because watching Gannon Buhr pump fake 20 times is not the solution that we need.
Look, he's just psyching out the basket. He's just breaking ankles out there.
No.
If you never know when he's going to throw, the basket can't get out of the way quick enough. So Ultiworld does polls at the end of the year, right? With like the shot of the year, the putt of the year, the roller of the year. Don't worry, we don't need to vote on foot fault of the year. That is settled without dispute in this tournament. Joel Freeman is stuck behind a tree, and he's on a knee, and he's leaning clear out, and he's looking to line up a forehand, and he's marked his lie with his mini, and he decides he's going to switch discs. So he stands up, and he turns around, he drops his disc, picks up another disc, and gets back down on his knee and throws his shot. The problem, though, is he throws his shot from the disc that he dropped when he went to change discs and not his mini. He was like 6 feet back, giving him a huge competitive advantage on that shot.
Okay, actually, I want to challenge you on that. Do you think it made his shot easier?
I really do. I think by leaning out, he has a little bit better of a swing for that forehand and just like kind of opens up the angle just a touch. Maybe it's not huge.
Maybe.
I think marginally, I'm just shocked that Joel Freeman didn't get down and go, that tree's a little farther away than I remember it. It was like 6 feet. It was so far, at least on coverage. It looked so far back.
It was a classic.
Yeah, that one was something else. I don't think it was done on purpose.
An easy mistake to make, I think.
It really is.
You're all setting up. Then you go get a new disc, and then you come back and you see the disc there, and you put your knee down. But oh wait, it was actually supposed to be the mini. I don't know. It feels like an honest mistake to make.
I think so too.
As opposed to trying to cheat out a foot and a half away from where you're supposed to be throwing, right? When you like slide the foot over or step past your disc in order to gain a small advantage. But it was very funny.
Yeah. So thanks, Joel Freeman.
What a tournament overall.
Yeah.
What a tournament overall. Really fun. We're going to talk more about it on Thursday. And we've got, of course, it's coming up soon, 2022 schedule talk. And we've got some interviews coming up as well. So thanks so much for tuning in. That is going to do it for today's episode of the Upshot. Subscriber bonus segment will be out on Wednesday. That's tomorrow. So we hope you join us for that. And for Josh Mansfield, I'm Charlie Eisenhood saying so long, and we'll talk to you Thursday right here on the Upshot.